Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, broadcasting to you from beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana. And today I'm here with my good friends Dan and Karen and Catherine, and we're going to continue our discussion of the book Love, Life, God by Jared Hewitt. We are in chapter 12 on page 176. We're going to start there today. But before we start reading, I want to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves. And then for those of you who are watching, if you want to just comment, let us know you're out there and share your thoughts as we go through this discussion. All right, guys, jump out.
I'm Karen Lohoff in Mesa, Arizona, and we're finally getting some rain. And when you get rain in the desert, you can imagine what happens.
Dan Sisek in Las Vegas, Nevada. Send some of that rain our way. We need it up here really bad because of the drought situation, and they're even now claiming that they might have to do some. They're actually calling it a water crisis out at the lake, so a little bit now, because the lake is getting that low at Lake Mead, and with it being 20 some odd years plus of drought situations here, so yeah, send some of it our way.
Good morning, it's Catherine Clement.
All right, guys, so who wants to read this morning? Anybody?
I can read.
Okie dokie. I'll let you start.
Okay, we ended at sort of a strange place last time, so the beginning of this starts out a little bit funny, but it says, well, remember those assholes from chapter 4, the ones who seem to get everything they want at the expense of others? I guess I'd say this is an example of an asshole eel. And then there's a pause, and he's like, right, I am self-love. So where does that leave us? And Spirit says, when the mind and the spirit come together from the blank page, ego is transcended. Self and self merge. This removes all separation and thus resistance, judgment, and victimization as well. And we're on page 176. I'm sorry, I should have said that. In this place, you literally see what the ego has seen. Yet you see beyond and through it. The totality of who you are now shifts, thus the evolving sense of self. Again, the ego is transcended in its current form, but it evolves with the energy. By moving through the fear of creation frequency into and through the frequency of intention, into the frequency of the blank page, and then into and through the frequency of the unification of mind and spirit, you allow divine love to come in, and this is what we mean by spirit. We mean that which you truly are, source. You are united with source. The frequency of your physical body changes in that you have unlocked your potential to allow source to unify with your physical being. The possibility to do that, which you would perceive as evil, cannot exist in this uniting because true spirit is love. Was that your way of saying that I can't use self-love for evil, even if I wanted to? Again, that which you call evil is a perception, which comes from your limited perception of reality. If you knew truly that there was only self-creatorship at work in all things, even in situations which are unspeakable violations to you, you would see that there are no advantages or liberties taken. The eel is no more or less a self-creating form than the fish. We understand that this concept bothers you. We wish you to move through this resistance. By not recognizing the creation of others, you are limiting your own. You are saying, yes, I believe I create, except in circumstances where the outcome is less desirable. I think we could probably talk at this point.
Yeah, I think
you guys think about that.
Yeah, I think this is kind of one of those things where we come into this, kind of lost my train of thought there, but basically it's like we have this idea of, good and evil, obviously. And if we kind of let go of this idea that, things happen to us and that we have no control over it, then that means we have to kind of take responsibility for our place in it. And if we do that for ourselves, then that means that we have to allow everybody else to do it for themselves. And then, we're all creating our own everything. And that can be scary, particularly when crap happens that is really unpleasant for us. And yet at the same time, how else can we move beyond something without recognizing how we landed in a situation in the first place and forgive ourselves and forgive others for participating in it as well, and kind of getting back to that self-love aspect of of our of knowing that we have more power than we think we have. I don't know. Those are just kind of thoughts that are kind of rambling through. I saw you unmute, Dan. Jump out.
Well, as you were talking, I get some of what you're saying, but at the same time, it makes me think about, the things when we see things that happen and that are, for lack of a better, I'm going to say bad, or tragic or fathomable or whatever in that sense. And we're in it, or we're part of it, or we're around it. And we're there because of decisions and things we made, and because of decisions and things that they've made. But to me, I made the decisions I made to get to where I'm at, based on how I'm perceiving things and what I'm doing. And I understand that they're doing the same thing, but is there some intentionality on their part? If I didn't have any intentionality of this bad thing to happen, does that mean that all that intentionality came from them or the others that are involved in that? And how I'm still trying to reconcile that, and without there being some sort of lack of a better way of good or bad being a part of it, and instead of looking at, okay, I created this, they created that, and this is just what was created, and oh well, just go on like this is, there's no substance to it, like, okay, that's what, I just have to accept it and move on, go on. That's just a little hard for me in light of when, like somebody is shot, let's say, and killed point blank, right, and for something, that they didn't do or weren't, that's, kind of where my disconnect on what it's saying here is, do are we really, because we have so many things coming at us and so many, for lack of a better way of saying this, that are outside issues, but yet if we're all, part of source and part of this and part of that, how I don't know, that's just where I'm really on that, hamster wheel and going around and trying to really sort that out and, understand that, okay, yeah, I'm here by my decisions, but they're there by their decisions, but this is not the decision I was working towards. I don't know how else to kind of say it or put it out there or get my feelings across, but hopefully you understand.
What I relate to, Dan, with you on that, is that there are people that apparently are very certain, their foundation is in understanding that we create whatever our circumstances are. And I was watching, or I was paying attention to the music station last night, and one of the quotes that came up was to the effect that we, whatever our sorrows and joys, we create them before we experience them, or something along that line. And I thought, okay, well, this is what we're, learning with this book. And this person writing this quote seems absolutely as certain of that as their own name. And, like you, I waffle about that. Did I bring this on myself? We had the air conditioning go out on this 14-floor building in the middle of last week. And, the temperature's over 100 with a bunch of people that, a number are fragile in their health. And how is it that things like that affect so many of us who participated in that coming down the pike? It is something that for myself, I would like to be a little bit more, accepting of, well, we all apparently needed this, or, this will create a better situation for us ultimately, or, who knows? So I really feel like I understand what you're saying. Good morning. I'm going to try and get this water. Can you get some water out of the refrigerator for me? Sure.
I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to something very personal, something I'm experiencing this week, the death of my own mother.
Hey, hang on a second, Dan. Karen, you're still unmuted, so we can hear your conversation in the background.
So it was kind of out of the blue. We really weren't expecting this. I'll be honest, we still thought we had 2 or 3 years still that my mom would be around. She was in fairly okay health. I mean, she had lupus, and she had stuff and took medicines to help keep her alive in her body. But yes, she was older, and yes, we had some extreme heats and stuff. But her passing was not really in any of our minds. We were not focused on that. We were not going there. We were not thinking it. And yet my mom still passed away. So, and I don't think it was in my mom's mind or my mom's desire to pass away. So that's where, just in looking at things this last week, reading this and making it, that's still where I have some problems with what they're saying and dealing with it. And it makes it hard to say that, oh, well, that's what she created, that's what she wanted. So therefore, that I was a part of that in creating that, because I wasn't. That was nowhere near my thoughts, nowhere my desires. I still want her here. If I had the choice and could create and bring her back, I would. So in that sense, how does that play into what they're telling us and what they're saying here?
First of all, I'm very sorry about your mom. I think even if you have years of illness, and you even are anticipating a death, it doesn't make it any easier to handle. Death is just always a difficult thing to deal with because we, as humans, I mean, we connect with each other and we just want each other to be around forever here in this body form. But I do believe with every cell in my body that we choose our death. Nobody dies before. I mean, that is the soul's choice of when to go. And so it may not seem like she chose to go, but I do believe she chose to go or she would still be here. And I don't think, even if people are sitting around thinking about somebody dying, I don't think that hastens their death. I think that is a soul's choice of when to go. And but again, that maybe that brings a little teeny bit of comfort, but not really still, because we, even though they chose to go, then our ego jumps in, well, why did they choose to go? So the whole point of it is maybe I should have stopped after the first paragraph that I read, which is talking about going back to source, because your ego will never understand all these things that you're trying to understand. That's your ego trying to understand that. And it will never make sense because we have free will. We co-create based on agreements that we made before we ever came to this plane. And so how can we make any sense of that when we don't even know that we agreed to do these things, or we agreed not to do these things, or, the ego is never going to make sense of that. And as long as we look at it as us and them, they did this, I did this, that's ego, and we'll never make sense of that. You really have to take a step back, step back, like a few planets away, and look down on what's going on, and see that everything is created for the greater good in some aspect. We just don't understand that. And so yes, it does come down to just surrendering, because you can't argue with what is. I mean, you can argue with what is all day long, but you're just going to make yourself miserable and confused. And so yeah, at some point we do have to take a step back, let go and let God, know that there is divine purpose in everything, in every way, no matter how horrendous it seems to us. And surrender that ego aspect of us that demands, I need to know this, I need to understand this, I don't understand this. How could that happen? And in a way, it takes a burden off because you're not carrying the world on your shoulders. In another way, when you've been out 3 planets for a while, it adds a burden because you realize, hey, we are co-creating this. And if it's not, if it doesn't seem like it's headed in the right direction, which we wouldn't really know that because we don't know what's supposed to happen. But, you know, then you start to like feel like you just want to round up all the souls, you know. let's let's have a huddle and rethink this thing. I don't know what we agreed to before, but things seem to be off kilter here, you know. So but we don't know if it's off kilter. I mean, the most horrendous things that happen to people, we've seen it. We see it every day. We've seen it since time started. The most horrendous things bring about the most beautiful gifts sometimes. And we just have to learn, you know, everybody, there's a saying in a group that I belong to, and it says, you know, just like me, everybody is just trying to be okay. And we really don't know what circumstances people are dealing with behind their Facebook smiles and all that. Like, we have no idea what people are going through. We have, you know, and this thing about forgiveness, I know that forgiveness is highly touted, but to me, the only forgiveness that needs to be given is to ourselves for judging that situation. Because that situation is happening by God's hand. So who are we to say that that's wrong and I'm going to forgive you? Like, that's pretty egotistical to me. What we need to do is forgive ourselves for judging that person or that situation to begin with.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the biggest reason, in my opinion, for doing that is to release yourself from the pain you're causing yourself because of not forgiving. And you know, because it all comes down to, we're judging in some way, and that doesn't do anything to that other person unless we're right there in their face telling them we're judging them. And but even still, it's up to them as to whether or not they even receive that, which they may or may not. I mean, really, judging is only causing ourselves pain, and causing ourselves to create in from a place of fear and frustration and all of that. But I a lot of what you were saying, Catherine, I feel like um, there's so much that we don't understand about this existence, and I mean, we learn that we are creators. I mean, we experience that. We can see how we can create in a lot of ways, but we don't realize how much we create without realizing it. And we don't realize everything that plays into any one particular event either. I mean, so there's so much we just don't understand, and we say we don't want something, and yet somehow or another we manage to create it anyway. We don't understand that, and it's hard to deal with sometimes. So I like a lot that the fact this book is just telling us, just come back to self-love, because we don't understand. We just have to come back and love ourselves and allow ourselves to create in whatever fashion that we happen to do it through all these different avenues that we don't understand, and quit judging it and quit being angry about it, I guess you could say. Or I don't know, it's not even necessarily quit doing that. Sometimes we just need to be angry, but is to love ourselves despite all of it, and keep coming back to that, and oh, okay, well, I wanted to create this one thing. It didn't come out that way. It came out a different way. We just keep trying again, like anything. It's like if we were going to start playing with Play-Doh and hope that we were going to create a master sculpture, and we start playing with it, and all we can make is noodles. Then, obviously we started somewhere, and we just have to keep trying, because eventually, if we keep on trying, we're going to be able to do things much more masterfully than what we are right now. The more that we learn and understand about ourselves and how we do create and how we influence our creation through our fears and judgments and frustrations and expectations, etc., the more that we can, let go of some of that stuff and create from a place of love instead. From everything he's saying in the book, is it, that's the easiest place to create from, or the most successful, or the I don't even know, but um, I do know that when I try and fight against the things I don't like, everything is harder. But when I just allow and trust, then it just happens when it's supposed to happen. So, and it all seems like it comes together better. So, I don't know.
Yes, exactly. And you brought up a really great point, which is, we have this, and I think it's because, our inner selves know how powerful and our creatorship and everything. And so we expect instant manifestation. We expect instant mastery of anything. We can take a 2-hour webinar, get off of there, try whatever they told us to try, fail at it, and beat ourselves up for weeks because we weren't a master, earning $1 million overnight on this idea that we just learned on a 2-hour webinar. Like, is that even realistic? I mean, and yet we do it. I do it. I mean, I had to quit doing stained glass for a while because I'm too toxic with heavy metals and stuff. And I'm working through this really heavy detox program. And so I had to remove the source. So I quit doing stained glass and I decided, okay, I have to do something because I just have to do art. So I'm going to do watercolors. And my first watercolor sucked. I was like, oh my God, I can't do watercolor. And then I was like, now, Catherine, really? After one watercolor, you're just going to give up? Would you get a grip on yourself? What in the heck? People spend decades. The old masters, what we used to call real masters, whether it was, in art or in a sport or in a whatever, those people spent decades and lifetimes perfecting their skills to be called a master. We somehow come along and think we can watch a 2-hour webinar and be a master. Like we really need to get real with ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, I was reading, what the heck was it? It was, maybe it was The Tipping Point. I'm not sure. That's just a possibility that it might be that book. And he was talking about um, uh, the point at which you become an expert or something along that lines, or people who they seem like they are just overnight successes, but in reality they've spent all this time up until that point to be this expert. He was like that 10,000 hours is like the minimum to become an expert in anything, and I can't remember how many weeks or years that adds up to. I was like, I don't know, many years of experience in any given field. It's like 10,000 hours is that's where you can get the expert from. And so, yeah, when we start a new thing and we're like frustrated with ourselves in only a week or so and we haven't mastered it, like learning to play the piano or, learning how to paint, like what you were saying, Catherine, or anything really. I mean, we have to give ourselves that. It's like when I first started pet grooming. I didn't know what the heck I was doing in any way, shape, or form, and it wasn't until many years later after I realized that I have gotten to an expert-ish level. It still was many years to get to that point, and I still was learning. So yeah.
Well, I think that's another part of it is no matter what, and I think no matter how long our existence in this plane or level or however you want to describe it, or this lifetime as we call it, will never be, I think for me, the thing is, I'll never be perfect because I'm not at that full level, like for in the book of self love or in connection with source and where we are in that real true. So it's always going to be a constant, pursuit and constant, you know, learning and learning and learning and learning and basically like that, just a constant learning with lots of valleys and dips along the way. But I think it's also like Catherine said, am I going to allow myself to beat myself up and short circuit, so to speak, short circuit the creation of whatever I'm wanting to work on and create or ultimately achieve? And I think that's the big thing that a lot of people, me included, miss in that and realize that, it's not so much in attaining it as the continual growth and learning and continually working towards that creation of what you wanted to create, until you can get to that blank page, so to speak, of where you can really create, like, you guys were saying with the masters and stuff and things like that, where I'm sure they even saw where there was always room for improvement even on what they did. And, so I think that's something else we have to keep in mind and not let ourselves get brought down by and not listening to everything else out there in the streams of consciousness and the different, levels and stuff telling us that, because of their lack of achieving it. So we shouldn't want to or continue to work on achieving it. And I think that's the other thing too, is, we take that, comparison and really do a lot of damage through that too, to ourselves.
Absolutely, we do. And the other thing is, I mean, we live in kind of a social media world, which I'm so very grateful for the internet, because if it weren't for the internet and me being able to get my surgery, I wouldn't be here right now. So, it connects people from all around the world. I think it's really played a huge role in our development as a species, even though it may appear that there are some underdeveloped. It's, again, that's just back to judgment and trying to compare apples with oranges, which you just can't do. But at the same time, and I'll just go back to painting because it's a simple example, these people on YouTube that put up their paintings, they don't put up all the crappy ones. And I guarantee you they have the crappy ones. Okay. They just don't show those. They only put up the pretty ones. So then you think, oh, well, they always paint like that. Well, maybe they do if they've been at it for a while. But chances are, like I watched one the other day where a lady, they call it I forget what they call it now, a happy mistake. I think that was one of Bob Ross's terms or something, a happy accident. There it is, happy accident. And she made this beautiful picture and people commented on it. So she was going to try to recreate it and she couldn't even recreate it. Sometimes it's just the flow of things at the time, and that can never be recreated. It's just something that happens in that moment. And that's why I really love to live in a very spirit-driven way of life, because as long as I stay in that flow, then I get to catch those happy little accidents once in a while.
Can we go ahead and just read the rest of this chapter? I know we started a little bit late, so if we end a little bit late, that's okay. As far as I'm concerned, it's up to you guys on the scheduling if you need to go.
Okay, I'll go back to the book. All right. So it ended with, yes, I believe I create, except in circumstances where the outcome is less than desirable. And Jared says, I can see this, and yet it makes me angry when I think about it. Why? Does it make you angry to take responsibility for your creation? Yes, I guess it does. Claim self-love around this. Know your own creation. We understand how this seems like an undesirable statement to you, and yet creation cannot come forward. Consciousness cannot expand into knowing its own nature. If it is able to claim itself as a victim, there are no victims. We are not saying that if something you deem as wrong or bad happens to you, that you are to blame. We are not speaking of blame. We are speaking of responsibility. It is your responsibility to release blame and recognize that whether consciously or not, you have created the situation. We've spoken to you in ways in which you may unconsciously create. Therefore, we are not saying the person who is seemingly wronged by another consciously set out to create the situation, but through their belief systems and fears, the situation was created by them. The situation was created to serve as a physical mirror to what they were holding energetically. Again, if someone cured you of cancer, you would rejoice because you would no longer be in the physical experience of having cancer. Why then do you continue to hold physical experience beyond its actual moment of experience? You can release anger or hatred or blame or judgment just as easily as you can release the story of a sickness you have healed from. Please understand, we are not saying that abusers or breakers of the law should not be punished. We are suggesting, however, that their punishments are of their own creation. We are not saying go out and commit crimes, knowing that whomever you burglarize will have created you burglarizing them. Energy does not judge, it honors itself. Whoa, what does that mean? It means that there is no random occurrence. You will have a better understanding of these principles once we explain the last frequency. Is that when I get my frequency mileage? Yes, enough to get you into the ionosphere, we hope. Did you want me to stop at the beginning of chapter 13 or go on?
Yeah, let's stop there and just kind of talk about these last little bits.
Okay.
I think that these are pretty important. Like this aspect of the situation. Let's see. Through their belief systems and fears, the situation was created by them, and the situation was created to serve as a physical mirror to what they were holding energetically. And so, I've noticed over the years that in my experience, when I allow myself to look at a situation, I can learn from it. And I think that that's what, they're kind of referring to here is that if we if we can let go of this idea that we are a victim of something and we have created it in some way, then we can examine how did we create this? How did I bring this about in my life? In what way? What part did I play in it? And how can I change my behavior or change the way I feel about it or how can I do things so that I don't experience that again or that I can experience something different. We can't create something new is while we're still we can't create more of what we desire if we're focused on thinking that whatever happened to us previously we didn't play any kind of part in it at all. We've got to, if we want to learn and grow and become more than what we are, we have to look at what we've done up until this point and figure out where we've made the mistakes and go forward from there. And I think that that's kind of, one aspect of it is to recognize that everything up until this point, I have gotten myself to right here, right now. And my desires, my interests, my fears, my judgments, my expectations, all of these things have played into it in one way or another to get me to this point right here. And when I can recognize all that, I can take that information and use it going forward in my life. Whereas if I'm just like, I don't have any idea how I got here, it's not my fault, then how can you possibly go forward and create anything you actually want if you're just expecting that stuff's just going to happen to you and you have no control over it, you know? I mean, uh, as long as we keep playing the victim, then we aren't taking control of our own creation. We aren't allowing our spirit to come through and create the best possible scenario. Excuse me, the best possible scenario for us. We're not trusting in ourselves. We're not trusting in our inner self. We're not trusting in God. We're not trusting in anything. We're just saying, all the shit keeps happening and I have no control over it and it sucks. That's not useful in any way. So that's my thoughts.
In reference to that, I find a lot of times when I'm listening to someone, let's say it's a lecture, a TED Talk, a webinar, an instruction video, whatever it is, that just an awful lot of times the person makes sure to say and to emphasize, this is not your fault. What has happened till now, or you're not being able to accomplish this, or you're not knowing about this, or whatever. It's not your fault. And that is something that has always made me feel really uncomfortable and kind of taken away the truthfulness maybe of other things, because I maybe didn't understand what I learned in this book, or other similar things that I pursued, but I've just had a feeling that it's not necessary to tell me it's not my fault, and it's not helpful to tell me it's not my fault. Not that I want to take on that it's my fault, but it's part of what we're talking about here, that we, if we don't know how we got somewhere, how do we repeat that, or how do we get to the next level?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I get why they say, it's not your fault, because that is a blame thing. When we're blaming ourselves and we're getting down on ourselves and we're angry at ourselves for allowing something to happen, then we get focused on that. And that's when we kind of wrap ourselves up into this victim mentality, whether we're our own victim or whether we're the victim of someone else. So letting go of blame, I think, is important, but also taking responsibility for our choices that we made to get us to where we are is important. Not treating ourselves like crap because we made bad choices, but just recognizing that we did make those choices. And then, on the forgiveness aspect of it, is we know not what we were doing. That's part of it. I mean, we may know in some respects, obviously, but if we don't realize that what we're doing is going to create this crappy outcome, or it's going to land us in a situation where we are, hurt in some way or involved in some horrible thing in some way, we didn't know that was going to happen. So we didn't do it to ourselves on purpose. We have to let go of blaming ourselves. We have to let go of we have to forgive ourselves for the choices that we made that we didn't realize were going to end up causing this horrificness in our lives, if that's what we're talking about. So there's kind of like two sides to it. It's like, we got to recognize the part we played in it, but yet at the same time, we have to let go of blame and anger and frustration at ourselves for having created it, and for the other people that are in our lives too, because they're creating. And earlier in the book, it talked about, I mean, we match up energies with other people, not on purpose necessarily, but through our fears and frustrations and feelings about ourselves, our self-confidence or self-doubt, all of those things attract similar or the opposing opposite thing. If we have no self-confidence, then it's not surprising that we attract people into our lives that talk down to us and treat us like we're less than, because we're attracting that into our lives by believing that's true about ourselves. But yet at the same time, if we believe ourselves as a confident, strong, blah blah whatever person, then we attract people into our lives that will reflect that to us. Like, it's talking about these situations we create that are mirrors of what we think and feel and act and whatever about ourselves. So it's really interesting. I mean, in relationships, I see it more often than anything else in my relationship with my husband, and with my mom, my sisters, and and everybody, all the people that are closest to me. The things that irritate me the most are the things that are like mirror reflections of stuff that I don't like about myself. And so, I mean, I lost my train of thought, so that's all I want to say. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, when both you and Karen were talking, it brought up an instance of someone I know very well. This person, she blames the world for everything that has happened to her. Every single thing. It's always everybody else's fault. She has not done anything, and it's all everybody else doing it to her. And I'm sitting there going, well, no, you made these choices, you made these things, you did this. I mean, I can see it. I'm sure others can see it. She just doesn't see it. And yet, but at the same point, she can't forgive herself or understand that she can forgive herself for those choices, move forward and make those changes to get her to where she wants to be. I've also made those choices, and I've seen that done in my own life and things I've done. And, I'm more aware of it. I don't always do it, but I'm more aware of it. And I'm still trying to figure some of that out, because there's still some aspects of things that people in my life that I feel that just drain me. And yet somehow they're still in my life. And I think part of it is I don't know I haven't figured out yet how to change that. And because I think I've forgiven myself, and I know that it's not necessarily me. Yes, it's mirror looking at myself, but I'm working on trying to change those aspects. But yet somehow they're still there. And I'm like, why can't I move past this? So, I mean, I see it even in my own life on some things, but when you guys were talking, it really brought up this one person. And, if she could only see the power and the strength of what she's created, which has not been good through decisions, but if she could take that and turn it around and change her thought process and quit blaming everybody, and learn to say, okay, well, I made this step, I made that choice, I made this. Okay, that ultimately got me to here. Well, let me change this. And then this out here will probably, change a little bit and start bringing me more of what I want, or reflecting more of what I want. And so, because our lives are so different, in how the type of people we are, it's, you know, it's just interesting to how this book is helping me understand that a little better and look at that for those things, um, and to want to still continue to work on not blaming myself. I'm learning that I can't change what has happened, but I can change how I view it and how I look at it and what I take from it and what I learn from it, to move forward and let go and then move forward, like you were saying, Samantha, and hopefully move into closer to that self-love and that state of, really connecting with source. For me, it's God, and getting in that better alignment and communication to manifest what I want out there, out of life, and for those around me, and hopefully bring that energy towards them, so that way maybe I can help have an influence to make, for them to make the changes they need to make to move forward and learn and grow and manifest and grow closer to source, God, infinite intelligence, however they look at it, and go from there.
This is one of the reasons that I am so grateful that horses have always been a part of my life. And it's not just horses, like you said, Samantha, it's people and it's other animals and other situations. But in my life, horses have been a huge mirror for me. They're amazing to mirror back your energy. And I think most animals are. If you show fear to a dog, you can tell that dog knows if you're fearful right away and is more likely to be aggressive with you, to kind of show you, hey, you're being afraid. Okay, I'll give you something to be afraid of, sort of thing. I know after I broke my pelvis, my horse had and I think I've mentioned this before, but my horse had an abscess in her hoof, and I was trying to take care of this horse with a bad hoof with a broken pelvis, and it really sucked. there were days when I thought, I just can't do this. Like, I'm in too much pain. I can't move. I can't even take a full breath, and I have to go out there and pick up this horse's hoof and soak it and put this medicine and do all this stuff. And I would just go out there with this already defeated attitude. And on those days that I did that, she would not pick up her foot. Like, I could have tried to pick it up with a crane and that foot would have stayed on the ground. Other days I would go, okay, this really sucks. I really hurt. I can't even take a full breath, but I have to go out and do this, or she's going to have to, be put down, because if her foot gets too infected, there's no way back from that. And I'm just going to do the best I can. I go out there and she would lift her foot before I even asked for it. Like, animals are so amazing. And the thing I love about, coming back to self-love, and I'm sure he says this somewhere later in the book, I can't remember, but when we come back to self-love, it's not just like self is all of us. We are all connected. We're all one being, just expressed in a lot of different ways. And so when we come back to self-love, we're actually coming back to love for everything and everyone around us. That's our self. That's our real self, not our little, one personality, one body self, but our source self. And, when Jesus told me no judgment, for many, many years, I interpreted that as no judgment towards the other person in that situation. But then through the years, I realized that was also a very powerful message to me. No judgment towards me, because I did blame myself, and it was blame. I did blame myself for events that happened that day. And because I had a very strong intuitional hit not to do something, and I did it anyway. And so I always thought to myself, well, if I had just paid attention, then this wouldn't have happened. But so again, we just have to come back. We just have to pull back when things are just really piling up on us. And it does, because life happens. I've been, you guys know, I've been really trying to prolong my Sequoia's life. And if I hadn't have put her on cannabis, she'd have been gone, well over a year ago. But now she's gotten to the point where she's becoming completely incontinent and stuff, and more pain, struggling to get up and stuff. And I had to finally make the decision, okay, yeah, I'm going to have to let her go. And anybody that knows me and my animals, that's like one of the hardest things ever for me to go through. It's easier for me to lose a person than it is an animal for some reason. But when I told my friends out in California, and I had to tell my son, and my daughter and stuff, that this was going to happen. Now my friends are coming out from California. My son is actually on his way here right now with my granddaughter, and I haven't seen them in, gosh, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that, like a long time. And so even though it's a very, tragic kind of situation, and it hasn't happened yet. I have to wait for everybody to get here and say their goodbyes, because they all love her so much, But just to see the love and the joy that she's brought to other people, not just me, to see what she means, and to be able to see my son and my daughter. And I think that happens a lot, or granddaughter, that happens a lot. With death, whether, typically not around an animal, usually it's around a person, but it brings people together that maybe haven't seen each other or spoken to each other. Sometimes it brings up a lot of angst, like our neighbor passed away recently, and they still haven't been able to bury him because the family is not agreeing upon what should happen and how it should happen and where it should happen and all these things, and it's those are typically really long standing frustrations, things where people haven't agreed upon things for their whole lives, and now they're kind of forced to make decisions about things. And sometimes it brings people closer together, and sometimes it pushes people further apart. It just kind of depends on the situation, but death is a huge catalyst, is what I'm trying to say. And for those that are in bodies that no longer work and have never worked, what a great and glorious day it is to finally be free of that. So as, quote, sad as death is, it's also, if you look at from their perspective of being free again, and I don't know, maybe you've never wanted to be free of your body, but I certainly have lots and lots of times, and I look forward to that day. That doesn't mean I want it to happen tomorrow, but I'm just saying, when I go, you guys better celebrate. Like, I don't want a sad eye in the house. So I love you guys, and I hope you have a great week, and I'm sending you all my love, Dan.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, it's amazing, animals, and even the things you go through with someone passing. I feel for you on having to deal with your dog, Sequoia, because I had to make the decision on the one dog I rescued and saved from friends. And I had to finally make the decision to put her down. And that was a painful and hard decision, but I knew it was the right decision, and now with the passing of my mom, that wasn't my decision, but I can't change it, as much as I want her back, and as much as I, in some ways, and I'm being honest, still need her back, and all that. But I know my family, we will get through it. I know we'll slowly but surely heal and life will start to go on and stuff. But I also think this is a chance to make some changes too, moving forward in relation to other aspects of family and stuff and things like that. Um, and I don't blame anymore, but I still think there's that initial friction and stuff on some ends. So, you know, forgiving myself in some ways for feeling that way so that there can be more moving forward. Um, so with the help of this book, that's helping to bring up some of those things and to help me connect more with God and that genuine and pure self-love that Source has for us too. So yeah, a lot to move forward with.
Today's been a good deep chat. It's been good. I appreciate everything you all have had to say, and this is definitely a book that makes you think. um, so for sure. Well, let's wrap up for today, guys. It's been a good chat. It's a little bit past the hour, and I know we started late, but we'd still like to try and keep it at about an hour. So, um, we just ended chapter 12, so next week we'll be starting chapter 13, which is the last chapter of the book. And I know we won't finish it in 1 week because we don't tend to do that, particularly since we're reading and then talking and then reading and then talking. So it may still be a few weeks, but if you are out there watching and you want to participate in our next book, we are still taking votes. Just go to our Facebook group, Mindset Mastery Collective, and you can search for that on Facebook, or you can go to mindsetmasterycollective.com, and there's a link to get into our Facebook group on our website, so you can do that. We'd love to have you participate. We'd love to have you add your thoughts to our, what are we going to talk about next time? That's going to be interesting to see what we end up on. So, but anyway, have a great, awesome, amazing week. We'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.